actually. And so we went over, the first thing that we went over was standards-based grading. And it, what was handed out to the board and shared with parents was handed out again, or the communication, that A's will stay and that letter grades will stay. It is not going to a numerical grade. And I think we talked about this for a while, this very specific, very simple wording. All course curriculum is based on Connecticut standards for each subject area. Assessments in all classes will be designed to show understanding of the content and skills described in course curriculum. All assessments will specify which standard is being measured. So there's a lot of discussion about that. That is based on standards, but it's not using a 1, 2, 3, 4 numerical. Rather, it's A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. Similarly, or on the same vein as that, was the same discussion about homework, that it would be no more than 10%, and that behavior had tried to be set up separately, but it was just really too cumbersome. Then it was shared examples in the school of where teachers, some of whom were not originally even in favor of redos for students with assignments, were very much enthusiastic about it, because what they found is that students wanted to redo an assignment for, you know, very much to improve their grade, but really what happened was they were putting in a lot more work and they were learning a lot more. So it really ended up being a win-win, because if the ultimate goal, as one of our student representatives said, is learning, then students were actually learning more and owning more. Then we discussed the high school guidance counseling and the update on the self-survey, and that was a very lengthy discussion, and we decided that we wanted to make the guidance department feel safe in the communication with us, and that there should be communication between the program committee and guidance just around the self-survey that was done, and really exactly what the goals should be, what the first priority should be, and what the goals should be. Because right now, one of the first bullets is improved communication with the Rham community regarding the role of the middle and high school counselor. And a member of the committee suggested that maybe that would not be the first priority. And there was a very, I think, lengthy discussion about making sure, you know, that who oversees some of the things that are trying to be done and who has the authority to oversee them. Is that formal authority? Is it supervisory? So there was a lot of discussion on that, and we didn't want to cause any conflicts, but to go forward. Dr. Szymanski is meeting with AHM to see if AHM is positioned to really see the students who are in crisis, and looking at the structure of how students receiving mental health, how that's implemented, and looking at that along with the state budget. And then Danny suggested that we look at that with the decision package, perhaps with budget season. And it was decided to invite guidance, have a dialogue on goals, and having them help craft the goals, to be doing that together. Let's see. Then a member of the committee shared that math is important, and that he was at a CAVE conference, and that one of the prestigious universities, or in the Northeast, MIT or Northeastern, shared that really students needed to be on a specific math track by 10th grade if they were to become an engineer. And that should be conveyed and shared with parents. And there was a thought that if AHM could provide more of the mental health, maybe guidance could focus more on college planning. And the conversation also about parsing out with AHM before there became a real therapeutic relationship with guidance. So let's see, then we heard from the high school principal that levels of anxiety, eating disorders are increasing. And we decided that the meeting that we hold in January, we want guidance to be part of because there was still a lot to discuss there. Then we talked about, let's see, the technology plan. So blended learning, web-enhanced learning, hybrid, and the online learning. And Jerry Deneen reported that more personalized learning because of online, it allows teachers to leverage the power of Chromebooks without without a risk of going astray for students because teachers are there. Mr. Leslie talked about the expansion of digital instruction where Mrs. Bubendorf teaches a virtual high school class and online courses are for credit recovery. It will allow students from the Inquiry Academy to do more personalized learning, and that we looked at web-enhanced course proposals for the 17-18 school year, which would be a pilot year, and talked about the amount of time, class time versus media center, and that would be different depending on the classes and the needs, and that it would be really based on students and standards and going forth in those standards, that the teachers would have to decide that. So that couldn't just be decided ahead of time. So let's see, there was an update on the Inquiry Academy and the tech plan. And then somewhere near, okay, let's see, Dr. Cerisi talked about grading reform process, what we plan on doing, that we need department feedbacks. Oh, that was earlier, I apologize. That was about standard-based grading. And then it was shared that there was a concern about recruiting a Latin teacher. When a Latin teacher would retire, so let's see, not next year, but the following year, and that there was a worry from conversations with colleagues and looking at other districts and the shortage of Latin teachers, and that it would want to be certain that students who are, if they were able to take Latin in 7th grade, that would be also available in 8th grade. And so that conversation occurred, and that was, the day of the meeting was a Monday, and I think a pamphlet was going out on a Tuesday, but nobody saw the pamphlet or whatever, and I don't know what it looked like because our meeting was running late, but it sounds like a little bit of confusion ensued, and that there became, because by the very many emails that we had, talk that somehow we wanted to perhaps eliminate Latin, which was never the discussion, and I think the discussion was more that we would like more languages actually for Rham students and offering of vibrant and rich languages. And we talked about strategic languages such as Russian and Chinese and some other languages we'd like to see in addition actually. So, and I think that pretty much concluded things. So I don't know what Danny or Amy or...
I think what I would reinforce, especially since all the confusion, I think if there was anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we ran into this this vacancy and unable to find a teacher, rather than cutting programming, to at least try to figure out if there's an interest in another language that so instead of netting down one language, the idea was if we cannot find a teacher, then do we find another offering where there may be a bank of other teachers that the students may want and can respond and enroll in, so that at the end of the day, there's still programming offered. It may not be Latin, maybe something else, but at least we'd be able to have something to respond.
I would like to expand two areas. One, the hybrid classes. There's a number of teachers that have signed up that are very interested in doing the hybrid courses, taking advantage of the Chromebooks. So that looks very exciting for next year. That could be a major win for everyone and direct us towards the personalized learning aspect. And then the other thing on the guidance, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that we lost a member of our guidance team who was the manager of the department. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying this right, correctly, but the administration decided that they would split that managerial function between two of the guidance teachers that are there. We definitely talked about concerns with that, especially in relation to the conversations we've had over the last 3 years to try to get guidance actually doing guidance. And so we're really concerned with that, and we're really hoping to delve into that in the next month. Both.
I think it's both, and maybe you could expand on it, and Rich did a good job of explaining that, because it was more along the lines of, as we're talking about the needs of responding to students who have health issues and mental health and emotional issues and whatever that they're providing good services for. We were concerned that some of that is overshadowing or using up resources to where there's not an equivalent or amount of access for students who are doing career planning, career goals, and even from the middle school and so forth. So I think part of the question was a little bit of philosophical debate about, do we have this hybrid setup, I guess, if you will, or does the department need a manager or a leader or a department chair, if you will, to establish the goals and the focus and so forth. And I think that might have been the comment about the budget, that
Right.
we might need to, it might be a decision package issue that we may have to consider and so forth when we start budgeting next month. February. All right. But thank you. Any other questions about?
Just one question.
Yeah.
Judy, you mentioned the statement, sorry, I missed the context around homework being 10%.
I think we all got this in one of our information packets. It's homework may count for no more than 10% of a student's final grade. And that was just a communication around grading when the question of standards-based grading, when there was some confusion about that. So this was put together. Did you have a copy of this? Mine's
At the middle
written on,
school.
but-
Right, this is at the middle school. At the middle school, there's two different situations. One is standards-based grading, the other is homework. And then they're talking about standards-based grading. My understanding is we want the grades to reflect what the child knows and doesn't know, versus including homework as being another grade, and signing the syllabus and all these other non-academic grades that happen to go into it. So it's to separate it, and that's what the standards-based grading kind of thing is. Homework in general, and talking about homework being a problem for a lot of people, I think it's getting mixed up with certain students' standards-based grading, and I think it's two different issues.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about the context.
Yeah,
because I think
it's not,
there's a-
but it's a problem.
Yeah,
I see
definitely.
homework as being a huge problem,
Yeah,
and,
I
but
agree,
it's
but
grading
it's
is
I
issue.
guess when you say problem, what type of problem?
Well, I think we're getting off a little bit, but personally speaking, some kids in the higher level classes are inundated with homework, 4.5 hours, 5 hours of homework a night, and, or
Yeah, they are.
more. And so there's a huge issue with homework, and it's not becoming clear to the educators
homework or if it's actually learning.
Does everybody have this though, because this was, I believe, somewhat of a, response to some of the, questions about standards-based, and it tried to clarify things, and it was, enclosure 4A.
This one?
None of this month, maybe 2 months ago or a month ago, but it's, I mean, I could take a picture and text it to everybody or
I
something.
just sent it back out.
I sent it out to the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the one that, says at the top, grading at Rham Middle School will be reported as, follows. And so at the top, it has the letter, grades, 97 to 100, then that first paragraph about course curriculum on Connecticut standards. The second paragraph's actually homework, may count for no more than. So it is, you're right, but there also was this kind of response that had these things appropriately together. And it talked about behavior and,
Yeah, I wasn't at our last meeting because I was out of town, but I was at a previous meeting. My understanding too is that homework should not be just repetitive exercise if it's not needed.
Right.
Some students don't need it, some students may need it. And what should really count is, the measurable results of what they really know. And also that attendance and behavior are important issues, but they're separate from mastery of a subject, basically. And that's how it was explained.
Any other questions?
I have a question, is that a 10% rule going to be implemented in the upcoming year, or is that something that's already going on?
It's just middle school right now.
Yeah, it's just middle
I want to
Yeah.
be clear that it should be high school as well, but we haven't made a decision.
Yeah, but is it going to be, is it already implemented, or is it going to be enforced in the next year? or-
Third year.
Oh, it is.
some of us see how much homework those high schoolers are doing, they're doing. Because they're doing a lot of homework.
Any other questions? Any other questions for program? So if not, we'll move on to negotiations.
Was that a 2-day meeting?
Yeah, almost.
Okay.
It's turning into one now. Going to negotiations. Negotiations did not meet, but we have an item on the agenda of executive session that relates to negotiations. Athletic and extracurricular activities committee,
We did not meet, we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday.
this Thursday. Finance, audit, compliance, and insurance. You sent the notes out, but
Yeah.
so you.
Well, we talked about the auditor, we have, when we went out for a bid, we got a contract for 3 years with the options of 2 one-year extensions. And we discussed, whether we want to pick up those extensions and what the pros and cons is. I think we're discussing later on, right, as one of the action items, that the finance subcommittee recommends that we pick up those 2 extensions. Everyone seems to be very happy with how the order has been working. We discussed the class of 2006. We put together a whole bunch of questions that we needed to answer, and we're going to be discussing those in executive session. So we'll leave that one there. And then the self-funded insurance, we already talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about it, we're at the next meeting, hopefully we'll have an item on the agenda that will include a resolution so that the board could send a unified, message of support for moving that forward, hopefully stimulate.
With equal representation.
We'll need some time to form
No,
that.
I just want to be sure that's included because it's an important fact.
That and, I sort of see those as 2 separate issues,
What's that?
the representation versus.
Yeah, I think it is when we get an agreement, and my thinking on the resolution is to let the other members of the consortium know that we are ready, we are interested, we would like to move forward collectively as a group to finish this or just never talk about it again.
I agree with you because I have a tremendous amount of time invested in it. I think that one of the things that, the thinking of the group is that the existing agreement would be essentially abandoned for the new agreement
Right.
because it requires much more oversight. Because remember, this group was simply advisory. We're going to have a group that's actually going to manage it and will require votes by the group. And I think that equal representation for Rham is very important.
I think that was.
No, there's a new admin reg that we need to review. I was handed out, so we'll review it next.
At the meeting, oh, we didn't review.
We didn't review, it was passed out. It was in relation to some of the 2006
Yep, procedures.
procedures and mismatch between some admin regs and some policy regs.
Dan,
Yeah.
can I just ask a question in regards to committees? Do you reappoint?
I was gonna give you my chair report, I'll send out a
Okay.
note like I do, I think, chair of interest in committees and so forth.
All right, I didn't know that you did that, so you do do that.
Facilitators, Educational Foundation, Dave?
I have not received any notification of a meeting. It meets very sporadic.
East County, Dave?
Yeah, EastCon is trying to do some work with manufacturing in the region, and I'm going to try to get a more detailed report from them. EastCon is, I think the leader there is just very visionary and very, much watches where the funding is, the federal funding, the national funding, and they keep growing the organization, and they're in all sorts of things, and they create capacity even to meet needs, and they're doing a lot with kind of, clean manufacturing and some of those kinds of things now, so they're really trying to take that initiative now and work with kids for readiness. So that's an interesting thing that they're just getting started with. So that's new for them. Then for CAVE, I reported last time on the CAVE convention, and so there hasn't been anything since then.
Chair report, the superintendent search, I just want to thank everybody at this point, because I know it's been a lot of work and a lot of reading, and a lot of meetings, and a lot of responses and the guidance, and it's obviously you guys are taking this very seriously, and the questions you're sending in are very good, so I just want to thank you for that. Also, just as a last development, you might recall that you authorized me to sign the agreement with CES, but I wasn't doing it until all the work product that they were promising us and outcome deliverables were made as a contract. That was done, I finished reading it, it's much longer now, and it was blessed by council, and who approved it, or at least said that it, it covered and allowed us some accountability, with CES, who is, I think so far has been keeping us on point, I think it's been really good, so. And then the other item is, I think at our last meeting, we agreed is January 21st as a date to do the retreat. And tonight, the last item on the agenda is, or was the last item on the agenda, was to discuss whether or not we're going to use CAVE or NASDAQ or I guess the other thing for that matter. So and then the last item is I'll be circulating an email to ask for interest in board committee assignments.
Can I ask one more question on this board committee assignments? Because I'm still fairly new to this. Will you, there seems to be leads of every committee, like the facilities committee, Joe's who takes the lead and, gets the agenda going, sends it to Kathy, makes sure she gets it posted and all of that. Is there a lead for every committee?
Each committee should select a spokesperson who gives a report here at the committee and also details the minutes after each meeting and helps formulate the agenda with the superintendent.
So that's done within the committee?
The committee, that should be your first meeting come after the appointment.